You have to be concerned about the one that you don't know. So, and that's the one that really concerns us. Plan's never finished. You have to constantly be ready to adapt.
Secret Service Director Joseph Clancy speaking with CBS News on Tuesday about security measures ahead of the RNC convention. Obviously, concerns are at an all-time high after last night's terror attack in Nice, France. And you heard the director say that the service has to be prepared for the unknown. We're pleased to be joined tonight by author Ronald Kessler. He wrote the book, The First Family Detail. Secret Service agents revealed the hidden lives of the presidents. Ron is Skyping in tonight from Washington, D.C. And via telephone, I welcome my old colleague from Capitol Hill, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Pete Hoekstra. Gentlemen, thanks to you both for your time. And Pete, let me get to you on what is happening in Turkey. What is the impact on the United States? We are hearing that forces loyal to Erdogan appear to be prevailing at this point, but what do you think? What does it mean for our nation?
Well, it continues to show just the diminishing impact that the United States is having in the Middle East. You've got the failed states of Iraq, Syria, Northern Africa, you've got Libya, the Arabian Peninsula, you've got Yemen. And we knew that ISIS, but we knew that this instability would spread throughout the Middle East this year, and Turkey was one of the key targets. And here you've got people that are rebelling against Erdogan, who is relatively sympathetic with the jihadist movement. He's trying to establish an Islamic State, and the military, which is the last bastion that could maybe restore, a government that is more secular. Finally decided to take a stand. It's uncertain how this is all going to turn out.
Well, we know it's uncertain, but to whose benefit will it redound politically in the United States? Mr. Trump or Secretary Clinton?
Well, I think this is going to benefit Trump again, because, again, what it shows is the failure of this policy by this administration in the Middle East. Erdogan, like Obama and Clinton, they have embraced the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood, they are the fount. They are the wellspring from where all this radicalism comes from. And they have decided to embrace the Muslim Brotherhood, believing that if they embrace the Muslim Brotherhood would change their behavior. They have not. I've got a book coming out in about 3 or 4 weeks that details in depth all of the relationships that this administration has had, not only in the Middle East, but here in the United States with Muslim Brotherhood groups and front groups.
And we look forward to that book. Let me turn to our friend Ron Kessler, who has written about various subjects, including the Secret Service. And Ron, just in terms of the atmospherics, if you will, of what happened in Turkey, I understand this coup took place with President Erdogan out of the country on vacation. Now, granted, they don't have the same type of Secret Service that we have, but what kind of leg up might that have given the rebel forces?
Well, they obviously chose this time to start this coup, and the whole spectacle of this unrest just feeds into more radical ideas in the United States to attack, for example, the convention. The Secret Service has done a good job in the past of orchestrating these so-called national security events, which include the conventions. But at the same time, under Joseph Clancy, this veteran agent who really has a record of cover-ups, you can tell that from his congressional testimony appointed by President Obama, despite recommendations of his own four-person all-star panel. He is someone who has continued some of the corner-cutting, some of the laxness, some of the cover-up mentality, so that agents don't feel that they are safe in reporting problems. So all this really concerns me as we go into the convention.
And you tell us that. And then we also have Clancy on CBS News the other morning talking about how they're trying to button things up in Cleveland. But on another question, Director Clancy also explained, claiming the risk to the presidential candidates is, quote, slightly more elevated than the threat level back in 2008 or 2012. Let's look and listen to Jim Clancy again.
I would say that the candidate threat picture is slightly elevated.
Even compared to 2012 and 2008?
Yes.
So threatening harm to the candidates.
Threatening harm to the candidates, being disruptive, and some just wanting to be heard, and they're willing to do whatever in terms of jumping over barriers to be heard.
Ron, an honest assessment or a kind of bureaucratic CYA by saying that?
Well, I think he's generally right about the increased likelihood of violence given what we've already seen at Trump rallies by anti-Trump people. But beyond that, there's the much increased threat of terrorism that we've seen under President Obama, and that in turn threatens the convention. And the fact that Obama appointed Clancy, despite all recommendations that he appointed an outsider who would shake things up and make the Secret Service something we could be proud of again, the fact that he did that, to me, indicates that he's like a juvenile who doesn't understand risk, doesn't understand danger. Here's danger to his own family, to his own life, and yet he appoints Clancy against all advice. It's the same with ISIS. He doesn't seem to understand the way almost everybody else does, that this is an existential threat. They could unleash WMD on us, kill millions of people, not just 84 or 88 people, but millions of people, and yet Obama is oblivious.
Pete Hoekstra, let me turn to you because you and I have been veterans of several Republican conventions, and here comes the big meeting in Cleveland next week. And it's very interesting that both the FBI Director Jim Comey and the Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson testified before the House Homeland Security Committee earlier this week. And I want you to listen to Director Comey, who says with political events like this, there is a threat, but he actually believes that between the government agencies, the government agents deployed, and the police in Cleveland, they're prepared to meet the threat level. Listen.
Anytime there's a national spotlight on a political event in the United States, there's a risk that groups that aspire to do just that, to engage in acts of domestic terrorism, will be attracted. It's a threat we're watching very, very carefully. It's the reason we have hundreds of people focused on intelligence and deployed to Cleveland.
And so we understand that Jay Johnson went to Cleveland today to inspect the venue, their concrete barriers, steel fences. The ACLU, interestingly enough, Pete, actually went to court to get the fences moved back. Does that just set up a greater possibility for an attack in your mind?
Well, I'm assuming that they're not going to move the fences back. At least I hope not. If the security folks believe that that's where they need to be, that's where they should be. But the perimeters are always a primary target for attacks. That, there'll be collection points. There'll be points where you need to go through security, and there'll be large groups of people. I expect there's going to be protests. But the other thing, JD, that we both know, there's a lot of venues, a lot of events, parties, receptions that are going to be happening outside of that perimeter. And I'm glad that the director is relatively confident that they've got things under control. But all it takes is just a couple of people to slip through, as we saw in France. I'm sure they had, very, very good security in place there. But you're protecting, tens of thousands of people, and it doesn't take much to get through.
And when you think about what the perpetrator did last night in Nice, saying, "Oh, I'm delivering ice cream." Sadly, a very different story. Pete Hoekstra, we thank you very much for your time tonight via telephone. Ron Kessler, I'm going to ask you to stand by as we are joined by another one of my former colleagues who has the first name Peter. In this case, it is former Homeland Security Committee Chairman Pete King, who has a permanent seat on the House Intelligence Committee. Peter, it's good to have you with us tonight.
JD, great to be with you as always.
You have less than 2 minutes. Very quickly, your take on Turkey. What is transpiring there?
Well, let's say, as a democracy, we cannot be supporting a coup. Having said that, we have a very good relationship with the military and the intelligence forces in Turkey. We've had a very poor relationship lately with Erdogan. So I would hope that if the coup is successful, we manage to maintain that relationship until democracy is restored. If Erdogan comes back in, if he overcomes this coup, I think we could see him become even more of an Islamist. So right now, there's nothing definite about what's happening on the ground. The military claims they're in charge. Erdogan says his people are in the streets. So it's right now it's 50-50.
All right, very quickly, 20 seconds, Pete. Are you going to the convention? And if not, why not?
No, I am going to the convention. I'm out there, and I've told Donald Trump that I will they have endorsed him, and I will support him. I'm going out there. It's going to be a security challenge, but I think the party can come out unified. I think that
All right.
Mike Pence is an excellent choice.
Well, good. We're going to talk more about that following the break. Final word to Ron Kessler. Ron, what keeps you up at nights, knowing the Secret Service as you do in this climate of unrest? 25 seconds, sir.
Well, Secret Service agents tell me that it's a miracle that there has not already been an assassination, given the corner cutting. For example, at some Obama events, agents will let people in without magnetometer screening. Under pressure from the staff, they'll say we don't have enough magnetometers. I mean, it's crazy the way a lot of this is run.
Dangerous times. Ron Kessler in Washington, Pete King via telephone. Thank you both. Up next, our political panel on Mike Pence. Stay tuned.